Can you teach old dogs new tricks? If you give a dog a treat each time he shakes your hand, after a while, he'll begin drooling as soon as you tell him to raise his paw because he's expecting a treat. In effect, what you've done is link the command shake with the thought of food in the dog's mind. The trick is associated with food, which triggers the response of drooling. This kind of associative learning, called classical conditioning, was pioneered by Nobel Prize winner Ivan Pavlov and is based on the realization that dogs can be taught to automatically respond in specific ways to stimuli. Let's understand classical conditioning better by taking a look at Pavlov's famous dog experiment. Pavlov was initially interested in studying the role saliva plays in a dog's digestion. He began by putting food in a dog's mouth to generate saliva. Food naturally causes dogs to drool, a natural, unconditioned response. After the first time, Pavlov noticed that the dog would start drooling even before the food was in its mouth. In fact, the dog started drooling as soon as the person bringing the food entered the room. Pavlov suspected that the dog associated the person entering the room with the response of drooling. He wondered whether the dog could be conditioned to drool in response to other stimuli. So Pavlov began ringing a bell before the dog received the food. And sure enough, the dog eventually began drooling at the sound of the bell. Now, the bell is not a stimulus that naturally makes a dog drool, so it's a trained or conditioned response. Notice that the conditioned response is the same as the unconditioned response to the food. The dog drools. The difference is in the type of stimulus that makes the dog drool. The food, an unconditioned stimulus, or the bell, a conditioned stimulus. Dogs drool naturally in response to food. Pavlov trained his dogs to drool unnaturally in response to a bell. Does conditioning work on humans? Imagine you're the type of person who gets jumpy when the phone rings. Your friends notice this quirk and think it's a little strange. One of these friends likes to go to trivia night at a local pub on Tuesday evenings, but you prefer to stay home and watch your favorite TV show. One Tuesday, you're sitting down to watch TV after declining an invitation to trivia, and the phone rings loudly. You jump, curse, run to grab your phone, only to find it's an unavailable number with no caller on the other end. The next week, the same thing happens. The next week, the same thing. Now you start feeling nervous every time you sit down to watch your favorite TV show, even if you've recorded it and are watching it on a day other than Tuesday. You begin accepting your friends' invitations to trivia night because your favorite show now makes you jumpy. Your friend used classical conditioning and caller ID blocking to make you feel nervous when watching your favorite TV show. Your unconditioned response, feeling jumpy when you hear the phone ring, became a conditioned response, feeling jumpy when the show begins. So you see, when the unconditioned response and the conditioned stimulus are paired together over and over again, the desired result or behavior is continually reinforced and becomes stronger. This conditioning process is known as acquisition. The dogs were conditioned to drool when the bell rang in the same way that you were conditioned to become jumpy when your favorite TV show started. But what happens if the association is broken and the dog stops getting food when the bell rings? If the conditioned stimulus is presented alone without the unconditioned stimulus over and over again, then the conditioned response is gradually forgotten and the dog no longer drools when he hears the bell. This is known as an extinction of the conditioned response. So old dogs can be conditioned to learn new tricks, as long as food or some other reward is involved. Take the food away, and the dogs are no longer conditioned to respond.